Hello, I'm Steve Ryder and welcome back to Racing Weekly, a podcast and YouTube show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. I'm joined by Sam Turner and Ken Pitterson to have a quick look back at the weekend action before having an in-depth look at Royal Ascot. Ken, welcome back to the show. We had you on for the Tingle Creek last season. How have you been?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm glad to have me back. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So a real exciting week ahead.
Yeah, excellent. And Sam, how have you been? Great weekend of sport?
Yeah, fantastic weekend of sport, Steve, wasn't it? Unfortunately, Rory couldn't quite get it over the line. Let's hope England can at Birmingham this week.
Definitely. Right, that moves us nicely on to the first topic, which is racing recap. Right, so I think it's fair to say that it wasn't obviously the most high quality weekend of action, but there are obviously a few performances to discuss. The first one that I'd like to talk on is the Scurry Stakes. First time cheek pieces obviously worked the treat for Lady Hermana, who won by 1 1/4 lengths for Carl Burke and Clifford Lee down the far side rail. Sam, what do you think of that performance?
Yeah, like you say, the cheek pieces seemed to reinvigorate her. She got the dream run, didn't she, over on the far side? I'm sure Ken was present, so he could tell me what he thought of the horses in the paddock pre-race. But I thought it was a tidy enough effort. I think she's slowly getting her confidence as well, and I think the fact that she's managed to get that gap over on the far side has probably helped her through the race. There's seen 1 or 2 horses in there that looked a little bit more imposing, and I wonder whether she just got bullied out of it a little bit at the start and intimidated. But once the seam opened up on that far side rail, she scampered through it and showed a good turn of foot.
Yeah, definitely. Ken, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Sam. I mean, what was quite noticeable, because all the jockeys said the ground was very quick on the 5 furlong track, and a lot of horses who watched the race, they were a little bit pottery on the ground. They couldn't let themselves down, so that kind of helped her. She travelled well on that surface once she got a bit of room. And like I said, like Sam said, once she came against the rails, she quickened up and won it quite nicely, I felt, in the end.
Yeah, it was the way she travelled into the race that was the most impressive, really. Those cheek pieces really did work the trick for her. We'll then move on to the Grand Cup Stakes. Obviously, Quickthorn showed a really good attitude, stayed on well over 1 mile and 6, beat the favourite Isra at York. Ken, what were your thoughts there?
Yeah, Quickthorn he does like York. I thought it was a good ride by Jason Hart. He was able to get himself out in front, dictate. And what I liked was when he was challenged, I like the way he found for pressure. But I think the key to this horse is having his own way up front where nothing kind of pesters him. And then when something does, he's got enough to repel him. Yeah,
definitely. He's going to pick up a few races, obviously, between 1 mile and 6 and 2 miles, isn't he? They've just got to place him well. So, Sam, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, the Nays Mile suits him brilliantly, doesn't he? I think he was he 8th in a John Smith's there behind Hookham when the year he won it. I think he finished 2nd in the Ebor that year as well. Won the Lonsdale Cup last year, and I think all roads lead to trying to defend his title further on in the season. He just wasn't for passing, was he, on Saturday? Israel travelled up very sweetly and looked like he was going to play a big hand in the closing stages. But I thought Jason Hart measured the tactics brilliantly and just exploited Israel's need to come from behind as such and managed to stack him up a little bit, save a little bit in reserve. And as we've seen, Quickthorn on his day is a very difficult horse to pass.
Yeah, definitely. Good performance. And yeah, nice win for Jason Hart. Tee him up nicely for Royal Ascot week. Arguably the most impressive performance of the whole weekend came on Sunday. Blue Rose Sen winning the Prix d'Ain. Really impressive win, 4 lengths. She's now into 10-1 for the Arc with Bet365. Ken, it was hard not to be impressed by that win.
No, that was probably the best performance by a 3-year-old filly this season, I felt. She was always in the right position, travelled really strongly. And what I liked is once a jockey asked to quicken, it was like instant. Quickened into the bridle, a clear. And in the end, it was a coded success. I think you can see her definitely taking a big hand in all those 1.5 races, especially getting the fillies allowance.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting what they do. The previous ones, so she joins the likes of Zakava and Allez France to win the Boussac, the Pouliche, and the Diane, all in their careers. They took a little break and then came back later in the season before obviously having a prep run before the Arc. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with her later on in the season. Sam, I thought it was good team tactics. Obviously, they had a pacemaker in there, set good fractions, and it all went to plan.
Yeah, wise girl. I thought Hedy Arduin exploited very cleverly up the front the lack of pace. Obviously running line, didn't run a race, which is a bit of a shame for the British contingent. Never Ending Story ran another very solid race in France. I'd like to see her on a more galloping track, I think, and a more, I wouldn't say truly run race because the time was very quick for Blue Rose Sen, but just perhaps a more orthodox race for her, somewhere like a York later on, long sweeping bends and a long galloping track would suit her a little bit more, but can't take it away from the winner. She did get the perfect run through the race and a lovely trip, and yet another filly to exploit the far side rail and was left and allowed a gap to burrow away down there and scamper clear. But the time was very swift, the quickest on the round track, and she looks a filly of immense potential and real quality.
Definitely. And Sam, I'll come straight back to you for anything else kind of over the last few days. Which we saw an impressive winner in Sunway at Sandown on Friday, and there was obviously some nice handicap wins at both Sandown and York and Chester over the weekend.
I think he was there for the 2-day fixture, so he'll perhaps give us a bit of an inkling as to what impressed him in the paddock pre-race. But you couldn't help but be impressed by Sunway. It looked very, very green. Still had 4 horses to pass with a furlong to run. And yet really picked the bridle up and power clear in the closing stages. A really stunning performance and another advertisement for David Manuzier's talents.
Yeah, definitely. Go on, Ken.
Yeah, I was there for that day. The thing was, had gone to Kempton the week before and put up a really decent performance work-wise. But in the paddock, he walked in. He's an attractive colt, but he was very green, coltish, doing everything wrong. And he just thought, oh, maybe I'm going to get on top of it. In the race, you could see that his inexperience was taking hold of him. But what I liked is when Ocean pulled him out about a furlong and a half, he picked up really instantly into the bridle, and the way he quickened up, and went through the line really strongly. And then, Ocean couldn't pull him up. He went down to the eclipse start before he could actually pull him up. So he's a horse of some talent, and Dave Manuzzi has a very decent two-year-old on his hands.
One race that I thought was obviously worth noting, Vintage Clarets beating Lahoo at Ancient Times at Chester. Those were obviously 3 of the horses where the stalls opened late at Epsom in the dash, so it kind of further enhances the thoughts that they were inconvenienced. I thought that was quite an interesting thing. Yeah,
they all came from off the pace as well at Chester. Seemed to be a very strong gallop in that race, and Vintage Clarets yet again burrowed away up the far side rail, got that seam when it presented itself and took it with both hands. We've already seen Ancient Times. He's been out at Doncaster on Sunday and finished an honourable 4th. So I wouldn't be surprised if Lahoo pops up again somewhere along the line. Didn't get the best of breaks, trapped out wide a little bit, and I think perhaps ridden a little bit more positively from a better draw. Both Ancient Times and Lahoo could make their impact felt as the season wears on again.
Excellent. So that brings to the end this week's edition of Racing Recap. Ahead of Royal Ascot, Bet365 have launched their brand new free-to-play game, 6 Horses Challenge. To enter, simply pick 6 horses from 6 selected races for your chance to win a share of cash prizes. Prizes awarded for 4, 5 and 6 winners per round. The jackpot during Royal Ascot is a whopping £100,000 for all 6 winners, with consolation pools of 25,000 and 10,000 for 5 and 4 winners respectively. This game is available to registered and eligible Bet365 customers, and for more information, visit bet365.com and check out the terms and conditions in the video bio below. Right, let's get into our Royal Ascot preview then. We are currently recording on early Monday morning, so we obviously have declarations for the Tuesday. We'll start off in the Queen Anne Stakes. Lock-in's winner, Modern Games, currently heads to the market with Bet365 at 7-4, just ahead of Inspiral at 2-1. Obviously, there's bits of doubts around Charlie Appleby's form. He's now currently back at a 35% strike rate in the last couple of weeks. So those concerns have kind of been quashed a bit. Sam, who do you like in the Queen Anne?
I think it's a real difficult call. To be honest, I was trying to look for an each-way perspective against the front 2 in the market. I couldn't find anything particularly solid. I think the pace might come from Mutasabek, maybe even light infantry, although that would be a bit of a differing way of riding the Ascot straight for Jamie Spencer. So I was just trying to find a little bit of value in the race, and I can't really. So I'm just going to go with the battle-hardened Modern Games. I take on board that Inspiral was produced fitting well after a long absence to win the coronation in exhilarating style 12 months ago, and it could be a case of the same here. It's probably a no-bet race for me, but Modern Games is slowly working his way into punters' hearts, I think. He's a great doer. I think the Lockins run was a fine performance from him. He's obviously a tough, hardy, durable horse, but he has got a touch of brilliance about him as well. And I think 2-1 for him is pretty fair. We already know that he handles the track. He was only just touched off by Bayside Boy in the Champions meeting at the end of last year. So there's no question mark there. He's had this as his prep for pretty much all season, whereas I wonder with Inspiral whether she's had other targets. They haven't been able to get her ready. The spring wasn't kind to some of John Gosden's fillies. The Yard are coming back in good form now, but there's just one or two little question marks for me. So I'll just go with Modern Games because at least we've seen him this season.
Yeah, definitely. Ken, your job's going to be invaluable with kind of how Inspiral is going to look in the paddock. But have you got any views kind of pre-race?
Yeah, I'm with Inspiral. She's got a good record first time up. Last year, she had the same problems going into the Guineas. John Gosden said she wasn't ready. He took his time. He produced her great to win the Coronation Stakes after a long layoff. I think she goes well fresh. I think there'll be a lot in her favour. All reports her work's been really good leading up to this. I think she's the one for me who's got the more, not the solid form, but I think she's just the one who's coming there with a bit more upside to her compared to Modern Games, who's a consistent, good horse. I'm not sure how strong the Lockins was overall, and he won that quite well. So yeah, I'm with Inspiral. The horse I'm interested to see how he gets on is Triple Time, because Kevin Ryan's always thought the world of this horse. He made a really good impression when he won a Group 3 at Haydock. That was on fast ground last year. He just could be an interesting one at a price to see if he can actually cut it at this level. But for me, it's got to be Inspiral.
Yeah, Triple Time currently with Bet365, 25-1 at the time of recording. So a bit of an each-way selection from Ken in the Queen Anne. We'll then move on to the King's Stand. Highland Princess currently heads the market at 11-4. From Aussie Raider Coolangatta, who obviously won the Lightning Stakes last time, the big sprint down there. Ken, who are you interested in for the King's Stand?
Well, I'm interested in see how Coolangatta gets on, because that Lightning Stakes has been a good stepping stone for horses like Swazir, Takeover Target, Miss Andretti, Black Caviar, and last year's winner Nature Strip. So interesting to see how they've taken that as a stepping stone to come here. But I've got to say, Highland Princess has been on my radar after her York performance. I mean, she never wins first time out. I think John Quinn said that she was in need of the run, which she looked like in the paddock. You take a step forward, and she's been a rejuvenated character, because I must admit, I never thought 5 furlongs flat track at York would ever suit her. And she won the Norfolk like she's been doing it all her life. So I think she's a sprinter, goes there with great form. The ground will be right. I just think she'll take a lot of stock winning that race. I really think she's got a great chance of winning this race.
There you go. Strong selection then for Ken, Highfield Princess in the sprint. Sam, you put on Mannequin last week. He's getting shorter and shorter and shorter as recording goes on. Currently 5-1 with Bet365. Still be this selection?
Yeah, he's shorter than my hair, Steve. He gone 12 into 5? I don't think I could recommend anybody to bet him at 5-1 in this field, but we did sort of have an inkling that Frankie Dettori might get the ride, and that's how it's transpired. He's also drawn next to some nice pace as well, which I think is a huge positive for him. He'll get a nice toe into the race. I think he's very solid in this. He obviously has got brilliant Ascot record. He was on the wrong side in the Palace House. The ground went against him. I think there's plenty of positives for him in this, but I can't help but think he must surely bounce out a little bit on the day of the race. I can't believe he's going to be sort of 5-1. I mean, at the end of the day, he's not proven at this level, whereas the likes of Highfield Princess, Coolangatta, Dramatised, they have managed to achieve great things so far, whereas I'm not saying he's a pumped up handicapper, but that's the route that he's taken. Now, we know that there isn't a lot between, a top class handicapper and the group horses on their day. So I'm clinging to that as a positive for Mannequin. But yeah, double figure prices were available not that long ago. And at 5-1, I'm not sure I could put him up as a solid bet. I think Highfield Princess is the one to beat, though, as Ken says. She's got a pretty average record first time up. She normally runs well, but she never wins. And I think the fact that she comes here, nice middle draw as well, so that takes out of the equation whether she's sort of stuck on either wing. She's going to have a little bit of pace around her as well, in boxes quite in close proximity. And I just think that she's a very, very solid one. I think, 11-4, 5-2. I think she's the one that they will have to beat. Hopefully Manukyan can give her a race.
Yeah, definitely. We'll then move on to the St James's Palace Stakes. A few have questioned the Guineas form, but it's a really competitive renewal. You've got the Newmarket 2000 Guineas winner, Caldine, obviously in there at 2-1. Paddington, who won the Irish equivalent at 9-4. Cicero's Gift obviously steps up in class, 5-1. Mostabshire 9-1. Isaac Shelby 10-1. So it's a really good race. Sam, who do you like? Is it one of the Guineas winners or elsewhere?
Well, it's a Guineas runner-up. The horse that wasn't beaten very far in the French Guineas. I think Isaac Shelby's a little bit of value in the race, to be honest. I'm surprised he's sort of bigger price than Mostabshire, 3 times or twice the price of Cicero's Gift. This is a horse that's gone and won a legitimate Guineas trial and won it well. I know Chaldean didn't complete with the rider on, but it was still a good performance in a fast time. On a difficult day for horses making their reappearances. Then he went to France, coped with the right-handed bend, admirably well, only just went down on his shield that day. So I think at double-figure prices, I think he's a little bit of value. I think, obviously, William Buick, great booking. Brian Meehan, I don't think he overtalks his horses, and he's always been very enthusiastic about this horse since the word go. I just think he's a big price. If you've got a little question mark about Chaldean and the Guineas form, Paddington has gone the route of sort of handicapper through to, you're asking him to be a Group 1 horse, and I think he'd be better over 10 in time. So I just think he's a bit of value. I think at double figure prices, Isaac Shelby, there's not a lot of downside. At least he's proved he can race right-handed round the bend, and he's pretty tactically versatile.
Yeah, and that would justify new owners obviously putting their hand in their pocket for it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Ken, who do you like for it?
Yeah, well, I've got my doubts about the Guineas form, full stop. I said that from day one. I just didn't like the way the whole race was run, the conditions, horses wasn't ready. I know people are going to throw in, well, we've had a Derby winner out of it, and but I just think the race was just an odd event altogether. So I'm definitely going to swerve him. I can see Sam's selection in Isaac Shelby. I can see that, but I'm going to go with Mostabshire. He was meant to be John Gosden's Guineas horse, ran in the Craven. Obviously, it was well documented that his horse wasn't right at the time. He probably he needed the run, and he probably didn't handle the conditions. But I love the way he won at York. I mean, he stepped up at York with William Buick, went from the front, and he put. John Gosden said he quickened twice, but to my eyes, he just actually blew him away by the way he quickened up. The seconds come out and won a race at Leicester, and won it quite nicely. I think his form is a different line of form, but the fact that they were thinking of a Guineas horse to start with, and now John Gosden decided to pitch him into Group 1 for this race, that'll do for me. So yeah, Mostabshire would be my selection.
Yeah, currently 9-1 with Bet365 at the time of recording.
Just a point on him. Sorry, Steve, to interrupt. They obviously beat Ziriab. I think he's favourite for the Britannia, so you might want to take a little bit of an interest in him if Mostabshire runs well and you can get on quickly.
There you go. Well done, Sam. I'll just go to the lads for anything else on day one. Obviously, as we have declarations, the Coventry Stakes is now going to be one of the highlights, I think, of the whole meeting. Follow obviously racing Twitter debate the other day with regards to a Sadness Times. Willie Mullins has obviously a couple of favourites bring on the night, hasn't been seen since his second place in the race last year, and Vauban's going to be obviously fascinating on the flat, given a rating of 101 for this race. So Sam, if I have to come to you for anything else on day one, who would you be selection?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of a Sadner, obviously, because I do follow Times closely. I think it's a bit daft to compare it as a River Tiber versus a Sadner head-to-head, because I think there's a bit of quality in the race all the way down the list, to be honest. My concern with the Sadner is he's obviously had an 11th hour setback, because there were big rumours that he wouldn't run. Rumours of a Stalls incident as well, where he might have sustained a small superficial injury. That can't be an ideal preparation for a race of this nature as well, especially when you're taking on a horse for whom the vibes are very strong from Ballydoyle. So it's a bit of a no bet race for me now, although I'm quite interested in Bacano 30, who I was very impressed with on the first day of flat racing at the Curragh. Whether he wants a bit of cut in the ground, I don't know. So maybe the storms would be a bonus for him. But I think he'll go quite tightly at a tall price. And the only other one I like is probably in the 2.5 mile handicap, Calling the Wind, who's invariably runs brilliant races at Ascot. I think he was second to Stratton, wasn't he, in that extended race, the last race of the meeting last year. He's been placed a number of times at Ascot to good horses as well. I think he's sort of double figure prices and probably with some extended place offers as well. I think he really does appear. He travels beautifully. He can probably win over 1.5 miles or 2.5. And hopefully he'll go well with young Billy Loughnane on board.
Yeah, good booking. Yeah, definitely value for the £3. Looking at it with Bet365, currently they're paying 6 places on that race and is currently available at 12 to 1. So Calling the Wind, the selection for Sam in the Ascot Stakes. That's the 5 o'clock. Ken, anything else for day one?
Yeah, just going back to the Coventry. I mean, I saw Santner when he performed in the Breeze Ups, and he was very taken that day when he won the Breeze Ups at Newmarket. I just fancy River Tiber. He's had 2 runs. He had to work to win his second run, which is going to put him in good stead coming into a Coventry where a lot of the horses have only had 1 run, and inexperienced, the occasion just could get to a few of them. So I'll just favour River Tiber out of that debate. With Willie Mullins, yes, you've got to fancy his running in the Ascot Stakes. I mean, he's won it 3 times. He's booked Ryan Moore. Ryan Moore's won it for him twice, so I can see that angle. But the horse I'm kind of going each way is Lord of the Sea of Ian Williams. Now, Ian Williams has won the race before. He knows what it takes to win the race. He ran a good time. Sorry, he ran well first time up in the Chester Cup, and then I thought he was going to win at Haydock. I couldn't believe he didn't win at Haydock. But I think if William Buick could have run the race again, he would have struck for home a little bit sooner than he actually did. So I thought Lord of the Sea of Ian Williams each way in the Ascot Stakes would be my idea of a bet.
Yeah, currently 11 to 1 with Bet365. So a couple of each way selections against to bring on the night in the Ascot Stakes, the 5 o'clock. We'll then move on to Wednesday, Prince of Wales' Stakes. Only 8 entries at the time of recording, but with the likes of Adayar, Luxembourg, Baybridge, and My Prospero all likely contenders, it looks a really, really competitive race. Ken, who do you fancy in it?
Yeah, this is an interesting race. Adayar beat Almat. That form looks good now because Almat's gone on and won in France, so that form looks okay. He did look well at when he won that race at Newmarket. Baybridge, things haven't really gone his way, and I didn't think this was going to be his target until obviously what's happened to Desert Crown. But I mean, he ran well in the Gannett when he was meant to be a bit too fresh. He did the Irish race. I mean, Richard Kingscote, things just didn't go his way that day, and it was just unfortunate the way things perspired against him. But Ryan gave Luxembourg a great ride from the front that day. Had the fractions really right and quickened at the right time and caught everybody out. But because now that Desert Crown's out of the race, I'm gonna go with My Prospero. I loved the horse last year. He showed some really good form at a mile. When he stepped up to 10 furlongs against Baybridge, I just thought he was just showing slight wears and tears of having a hard season. Because even though he's a good-looking horse, he was quite on the weakest side. So I just thought that race was, even though he ran well, he was just a bit on the weak side to taking 10 furlongs in that time of his career. I love the comeback in the Lockinge. I mean, if you're going to see a good-looking horse, have a look at this fella. I mean, he's got a lovely frame, looks great. Coat-wise, he looked well. Fitness-wise, you can see that William has, I guess, left a little bit to work on. So it'll take a step forward from the running the Lockinge. 10 furlongs is ideal for him. I think My Prospero's got a good chance of taking this race.
Perfect. Sam, when we had a chat in the studio a couple of weeks ago, My Prospero was kind of your thoughts of the winner there. Again, he's another one that's shortened with obviously Desert Crown coming out. But would he be your idea of the winner of the race still?
He would, yeah. I haven't got a lot to add to Ken's excellent assessment, to be honest. I'm with My Prospero. I'll probably push all my chips in on that Lockinge form with Modern Games on day 1 and My Prospero day 2. So, yeah, fingers crossed he can go well. We've seen that race already starting to work out quite nicely. Jumbie winning, Light Infantry running well out of it. So the time figure was good enough. I thought it was a great prep run as well. To run that well over a mile against, quality milers, I thought was a really good effort from him. Got Ascot form. as Ken says, he's a lovely model, and fingers crossed he can give the Haggises a big run. They've been a bit unlucky with one or two of their horses being ruled out through injury coming into this meeting, so fingers crossed he can give them a pick-me-up.
Definitely. We'll then move on to the Thursday action. Ascot Gold Cup will be the first race to talk around. It's a really open race this year, currently 11 to 4 the field with Bet365. Eldar Eldarov is their favourite at 11 to 4, closely followed by Coltrane at 3 to 1, Emily Dickinson at 13 to 2. And then Courage Mon Ami is a fascinating contender, stepped up in class, currently 8 to 1 with Bet365 with Frankie jocked up. Sam, your thoughts on the Ascot Gold Cup?
Yeah, I think it's an intriguing race. Obviously, we haven't got the potential for Haskoy running in here because she's been retired. Subjectivist has been the subject of some quite solid support, most notably from his owner in the race leading up to this, after showing a bit more at Maidan. I do think it centres around the front too. I think it's an intriguing head-to-head. You've got the proven stamina of Coltrane and the probable class of Eldarov. I am just going to plump for Coltrane. He's always impressed me, doing a bit of sectional work on his previous runs. His times have always been equating very well to horses that have been running over shorter distances on the same card. So he has got a turn of foot for a stayer. He gallops strongly. He acts at Ascot particularly well. I think that was a career best that he produced in beating Wise Eagle so comfortably back in May in a prep race for this. He's reportedly had a good preparation coming into the race as well. I'm very fearful of Eldarov. I think he'll get the trip fine. His Yorkshire Cup run is working out, particularly well, with Quickthorn and Siskany winning subsequently. So, that looks very strong form. I think he'll really put it up to Coltrane, but I'm hoping that Andrew Borden can have the winner.
Yeah, like you said, it's just fantastic Ascot form. Obviously won the Ascot Stakes last year, finished second behind Trushan in the long distance cup, and then was a really impressive winner on his reappearance. So you can see why Coltrane has moved towards the head of the market. He looks absolutely rock solid. Ken, your thoughts on the race?
Yeah, I taking what Sam said about Coltrane. I've got to be with Eldarov. I mean, he's won a classic. I must admit, I had my doubts about him winning the classic at the time, but he won it with a bit of authority at Doncaster last year. He's come back at York, not looking 100% fit, giving weight away. I thought that was a really cracking effort for him. I mean, he can only improve for it. I think he'll get the trip fine. I don't see that being a problem the way he races, because he's quite an easygoing colt. So I think Eldarov, I think he'll take a lot of beating in the Gold Cup, because I don't think it's the strongest race in terms of depth. But I think the cream is in the top, probably the top two, and maybe Emily Dickinson. But she's just very one pace. I mean, she does lack a turn of foot. So yeah, for me, Eldarov will be my selection. But the only interesting horse I'd interested to see how he gets on is Yabir. He's got loads of ability, this horse. I'm not saying he might not even figure at all, but interested to see how he gets on over 2.5 miles.
Yeah, it's rare you get a Breeders' Cup winner obviously going up over the Ascot Gold Cup trip. So, yeah, no, he's going to be a fascinating contender. It just depends what mood he's in on the day, doesn't it? You mentioned cream of the crop. I think it's worth talking about the Ribblesdale Stakes now. Alasifa obviously has been supplemented for this race, currently 4-5 with Bet365 for the race. Yeah, a lot of people thought that it would be a nice betting race anti-post, with the likes of Soul Sister and everyone obviously unexpected to run. But Alasifa obviously been supplemented for the race. She looks as if she has obviously that touch of class. But she faces Infinite Cosmos and Blue Stocking, who both missed the Oaks in order to come here. So, Ken, have you obviously seen some of these fillies in the flesh, and what do you think going forward?
Yeah, I saw Alasifa at Goodwood last weekend. There was big rumours on Tuesday at Newbury that she was going to be supplemented. I asked Jim Crowley. He was quite surprised. He was surprised she was going there, but she's a lovely model. I mean, okay, I know she didn't beat much, but the way she travelled in the race, I mean, it was all effortlessly. I mean, when Jim pulled her out, he shook the reins, and within 2 strides, she'd pulled right away from them and winning without even breaking sweat. She's hardly breathing when she returned. She's a really nice model. I think interesting that they decided to go for this and not go for the Irish Oaks, because that was their first thoughts after the race. So I think she's a really talented filly. We're only scratching the surface regarding her ability. But I mean, there's a filly I fancied for the Oaks and she didn't turn up. I mean, I do like Blue Stocking. Loved the way when she won her first race at Salisbury. That form's been advertised quite a few times. That race worked out. The Newbury run, you could say she was a little bit unlucky. I think inexperience beat her. I mean, Rossaran travelled nicely at the back. He's come with his challenge. She's just ducked to her left as he's asked her, just down to inexperience, and then she's run on again. I know Rafe Beckett's always thought the world of this filly, and I just think with Frankie on it, she's going to be backed. I just think she could be the one to maybe be the favourite.
Yeah, she's currently 7-1 with Bet365. When we had Rafe Beckett on a couple of weeks ago, there was just that twinkle in his eye around this filly. You could tell that she was one that he was really looking forward to, and was a bit gutted that they had to miss the Oaks. So, Sam, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to hear Ken's view on on Alasif, because obviously she's looked a really impressive filly in the 2 starts today. The potential is undoubtedly there. That's certainly factored into the price, isn't it, 4 to 5? And she's backing up quite quickly, which is a rather un-Gosden way of doing it. 3 runs in probably less than a month. And it has taken her obviously a good while to get onto the track, but she's learning quickly. I loved how she coped with Goodwood's undulations, despite not finding them particularly to her liking. And she had little more than a piece of work round there, really. Her times haven't been astonishing yet, but they've been very solid, considering she's been, hasn't been unduly pressed to go and register very comfortable victories. So she's obviously a class act, but that's factored into the price, and we don't know the draw yet. She might get an awkward draw. She's an inexperienced filly. A little like Ken, I think Blue Stocking's got a lot of upside. As you say, we spoke to Rafe Beckett on the pod a couple of weeks ago, and he was very fulsome in his praise for her. And I just like her profile. She's had a little bit more time between the races, have been a bit more staggered. You're obviously going to get Frankie on board. I think she's probably the second best filly in the race from what we've seen so far, and there's no real reason why she can't jump forward quite markedly from that Newbury performance, her comeback run.
Definitely, yeah. No, it's going to be a really interesting race to Ribblestone. We'll then move on to Friday's action. We've got the Commonwealth Cup. I love this race. You've got Little Big Bear heading market at 13 to 8. Then you've got a couple of the kind of Guineas runners coming back in trip in Sakir and Lazoo. Lazoo is another that Rafe Beckett was thrilled with in the Guineas. Just didn't stay. Looking forward to dropping back to 6 furlongs. Obviously, Frankie on board. Sam, your thoughts on the Commonwealth Cup?
Yeah, I mean, without seeing the draw, it's quite difficult to play at this stage. Obviously, Little Big Bear earned his place at the top of the market with that performance at Haydock, where he enjoyed the fastest strip of ground, and he beat a very honest and solid and dependable horse in Should Have Been a Ring, but not an extraordinary one. So he's going to have to step forward again. Sakir, is his price primarily on his stable and what he managed to achieve at Newbury last year? Probably yes. I mean, he's tight enough in the market. I would probably throw a few quid each way at a couple of horses that have already run at the track this year. That's Cold Case, who won the trial for this race and then blew out quite abysmally behind the favourite at Haydock, but that was too bad to be true. I think he's 33 to 1. And the Exo was a horse that finished second to him, and he's 66 to 1. Now, if there's some enhanced places on offer in the village on Friday morning, probably have an interest in both of those two. The fourth is actually entered in the race, but I've got a feeling that Marban might go for the Chesham rather than this race. He looks more perhaps a 7 than a 6 on fast ground. So I'll just risk a few shillings each way on Cold Case and the XO. We've seen that Carl Burke can get these sprinters rocking and rolling again after a below par effort, and the XO could be a big price if Manakan goes and runs a big race on Tuesday, and John Ryan has his horses in good nick.
Definitely. Couple at big prices then for Sam in the Commonwealth Cup. Ken, who took your eye?
Yeah, I mean, if we go in the paddock, there's only one horse going to take your eye, and that's a Little Big Bear. I mean, when I saw him in the Guineas, got to say, of all the horses in the Guineas, even though he probably wasn't right that day, he will take anyone. He's such a magnificent looking horse. I mean, he's built like a middleweight boxer. He's powerful. He's got a massive chest on him. I mean, there was no way he was going to be Ken. I wish I was, Sam. I mean, there was no way he was going to be a miler when you saw him. He come back and he's proven at Haydock. I know there was a bias there that sprinting is his game. I think if you're going to back him, I think he'll take a lot of beating. But the horse I like is Shaquille. He's done nothing wrong for Julie Camacho. I still don't think he's had the races run to suit him, because I think he doesn't need to lead. I think he needs a strong pace to come off. But he's done nothing wrong. James Doyle still electing to ride him. on Friday. I think around 8-10 to 1 each way. I think he's got each way for me against Little Big Bear would be the way I'd play that race.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, you can't argue with the form at the moment. We'll be on a 5-timer in that race, old Shaquille. So currently 9-1 with Bet365. We'll preview one more race on the Friday just quickly. It's the Coronation Stakes, a rematch between Tahira and Morge. The market favouring the chances of the Dermot World filly, currently 8-11 with Bet365. This one might not take too long. Ken, is it Tahira for you?
No, I'm still sticking with Morge. Both of them were ready for me at the Guineas meeting. They both pulled clear. It's a different scenario. Obviously, you're going to go around the bend. How will the draw take effect? I'm not. We'll have to wait and see. But Morge has done nothing wrong for me, and everyone's saying, "Oh, well, Tahira should have run past her, and she didn't. Was there a reason why she didn't?" And I'm in that camp. I think she had every chance of going past, and she didn't. She's won a Guineas, 4-9 or whatever. So there wasn't a lot of strength in depth in that race, I didn't think. So yeah, for me, Morge will still confirm the form, and just keep an eye out for Queen for You, because she's again a lovely, attractive filly owned by Normandy stud. I liked her at York, and I can't believe she didn't win, as my pocket can justify to that. But I mean, yeah, I think she'll run a big race. She's got a bit to find in the figures, but for me, Morge.
And with regards to Morge, obviously she ran a couple of times at Meydan in January and February. Was she ready to go in the Guineas, or will she kind of step forward from that run?
Yeah, she was ready. I mean, obviously, spent the winter in the sun, so she's going to look good with coming back to England in the cold weather. So she looked well, but I still felt there was a bit to work on going forward with her as well. I didn't think she was completely 100% there for that day. So I'm hoping she'll take a little step forward from that, and I still think hopefully she'll confirm the form.
Yeah, if she does, it's 3-1. So yeah, you're getting a nice price, about a 1,000 Guineas winner. Sam, your thoughts?
Yeah, I like to hear her. I think she's got a little bit more of that push button speed, which I think could be crucial on the round track. Providing she can get a pitch from a nice draw. Obviously, the draw quite a big factor on that round track. I'm not sure you want to be down the rail, particularly. That can cause trouble. And if he's trapped down the wing as well, you can't get the cover. So you want everything in the right built into that price. You want everything right for you when you're going to have a bet on something like Tahira. Like Ken says, I think Queen for You, I think there's a better run to come from her as well. I think back at Ascot, it's a track that she handles well. You've already seen that, and I think I can see her price tightening up a bit. I wouldn't be surprised if Morge faces a bit of pace pressure for the lead. That's the only slight issue I've got with her chance. But looks like being an intriguing race, and I think the faster they go, the easier Tahira will win.
There we go. Last race we preview in full is on Saturday. It's the Queen Elizabeth II Jubilee Stakes. Australian radios Artorias and Wellington currently head the market for the race. Currently 130 the field with Bet365. Artorias has had some pretty big talking up. Apparently has gone well recently since he's come over. Sam, your thoughts around the sprint?
Yeah, obviously he was unfortunate in the race last year, and that's why he's sort of graduated towards the head of the market. I think if you're going to bet the race, he's worth having on side as a saver, because I think he's got a lot of natural ability. He didn't find the best passage through under Jamie Spencer last year. How many times have we said that in the past? But he just didn't get the breaks. I'm not saying he would have won, but it was a really fine effort. He just hit that flat spot, and he did the same on his prep run. If you watch it back, he just, even though it was over 7.5 and round the bend, he just hit a flat spot, and then he takes off late. So that's enough to just set the alarm bells ringing at 4-1. I've got to admit, I really like the claims here of Rohan. I think the stats back up well for him. We're just doing a little bit of work on him. Obviously, Highfield Princess, if she backs up quickly and runs well on Tuesday, then sort of the 7 or 8-1 for her will probably evaporate pretty quickly, a bit like the precipitation at Ascot. But he's run twice at the Royal meet. He's won both occasions, Rohan, both of which those runs have come off a 28-day break, which is exactly the same preparation as he's had coming into this race. He's double-figure prices. He obviously won the Wokingham last year. I mean, I watched the race back the other day. He just had no right to win that race from the position that he was down the stand-side rail. And the way that he's taken off in the last furlong and a half, Ryan Moore hasn't even picked the stick up on him. It was just an unbelievable performance. You know, it was like a knife through butter the way that he's gone through his field there. So this track obviously suits him particularly well. He's had his whole season centred around this race, and I think 10 or 12 to 1. If he gets a favourable draw, and fingers crossed Ryan might ride him again because he's got a good record on him, I think Rohan would be my pick at this time of the week.
Yeah, currently 12 to 1 with Bet365 for the race. Ken, your thoughts?
Yeah, it'd be interesting what Ryan Moore rides because he rode Wellington last time. He won in Shantin. So interesting which one will Ryan side for. I mean, like we said, Arturius, he's been there, he tried twice, didn't really go his way. Still, I don't see he's an idea of the winner. Wellington's definitely an interesting runner. And Rohan, well, I mean, Sam's already summed him up. I mean, he's got a great chance at Ascot, loves the place. But I'm going to go Sacred. Fancied her last year. William Haggis aimed her at this race without a pep run last year, and she ran really well. But this year, he's taken a different route. He went to Lingfield, and she won the Chartwell Filly Stakes that day. I know it was on the all-weather, but she won that. She comes here now on the back of a run. He's always thought she's at least a Group 1 performer at 7 or 6 furlongs. And I think this will be ideally suited for her. It will be a strongly run race as it normally is. And I think Sacred has got a good chance to hopefully win this race for William Haggis. So that's my idea of the winner. Her form's there. She's run all these big races over 7, 6 and 7. I think she's the idea of the winner for me.
Yeah, she's been kept in training in order to try and obviously win this Group 1. She's a Group 2 winner. Yeah, this would be a good chance for her. Currently an 8 to 1 shot with Bet365. Right, guys, I'm going to come to you for anything else at the over the festival. Obviously, we've got loads of other races. You've got handicaps, 2-year-old races, the lot. So 3 horses to tip in other races. Ken, I'm going to come to you first.
Last week, I think Sam and Rishi were talking about elite status when it ran at Sandown. The only thing I will say, he wasn't fit at Sandown, and that's why he wondered at the end because he was quite tired, and he beat 8 runners, 8 previous winners in that race. I think he's an absolute machine as a 2-year-old. I mean, he's got the physique, he travels, he's got the full package for me, and I can see he's going to improve again on the back of that national stakes win for me. So I think elite status in the Norfolk will take up. Well, I think he'll win it. I just think he's the best 2-year-old I've seen so far this season. I think Bolshoi Bally's got a chance in the Wolferton. I think he'll run well in the Wolferton. Back down in grade, ran behind Haskell, who's now retired at Newbury. So I think he'll run well. And do you know what my best bet of the whole meeting is Bertolini in the King George V handicap on Thursday. I love the way he won the London Gold Cup. I thought it was a really good performance. Again, a lovely horse by Justify, got a bit of quality. Obviously, Aidan O'Brien had him mentioned in the Derby and all those big races. He won the London Gold Cup and comes here. I think, as long as the draw's kind, I think Bertolini's my nap of the whole meeting.
Very good. Bolshoi Ballet currently 15 to 2 with Bet365 for the Wolferton Stakes. Yeah, have we got a price on Bertolini currently? I'll try and find that while Sam's then doing his. Sam, your 3?
Well, I'm witching on. Just I haven't seen the draw yet for the Royal Hunt Cup, but 2 that have caught my eye in that race would be Intelligent, who was second in the race last year at a big price. I think everybody saw his trial at Newbury down the standside rail. I thought there was a couple of occasions where he could have been asked to get a bit closer, but wasn't. I think it was a lovely prep run with a view to Royal Ascot. So Intelligent. And the other interesting one for me is Reach for the Moon, who's touted as a Guineas horse at the start of the year for the King. And they obviously had Saga in this race. He's gone the 1.25 mile route, and Reach for the Moon is running in this with Frankie Dettori booked, I think. He makes a little bit of interest to me. I think he's potentially a very intriguing runner in the Royal Hunt Cup. Clearly, John Gosden has not run him because he didn't want to waste his mark, and he's going to manage to get into this. And I think dropping back into handicap company could be the making of him. Other horses that I quite liked on the Wednesday, the one horse I'm probably going to back each way is Maximum Impact. I haven't seen his draw yet, but he's up against Barnwell Boys, so we should get a price. Obviously, the sectionalistas were waxing lyrical about Barnwell Boy, but Maximum Impact has actually done it at Ascot as well. I just love the way that he was so strong in the last 100 yards of his race here over 5 furlongs when we last saw him. So fingers crossed for Kevin Stott that he can have a big week, and obviously that would be a great occasion for Alice Haynes as well if she could get a winner on the board at Ascot. So those two make plenty of appeal on the Wednesday, and then probably on the Saturday I've got close eye on Jumby. I think in the Wokingham. I think if he gets a favourable draw, back to form over 7 at Haydock. Eve Johnson Houghton's done exceptionally well in recent weeks, including at the Epsom Festival. Fingers crossed Jumby gets a nice draw round by some pace. We can bet him at double figure odds in the Wokingham because he's got a bit of Ascot form. Stays 7 well, which I like. You know, strong gallop, those 6 furlong races on the straight track at Ascot. So hopefully it'll set up nicely for Jumby.
Definitely. Ken Bertinelli, your nap of Royal Ascot currently 8-1 with Bet365. Sam, your best bet of the whole meeting, if you haven't mentioned it already.
I'm going to go with Maximum Impact each way against Barnwell Boy in that closer on Wednesday.
Okie doke. Currently no prices for it. For what it's worth, my nap of the festival, a bit of a left field one. I like Jackie O in the Sandringham Stakes on Friday.
I backed her, Steve.
I think
won a few bets. I've backed her.
I think she's really interested in the fact that she's running in the handicap rather than in the Coronation Stakes. She obviously finished 5th behind Tahira in the Irish 1,000 guineas. That should receive, hopefully, a nice form boost. She made a big race move at halfway during that Irish 1,000 guineas, and I think she thought she got tired late on. So opening rating 102. Ryan Moore will be on board, and I think 7-1 for Jackie O in the Sandringham Stakes is a good bet.
He's actually jocked up as well, isn't he, Ryan? Which is amazing. She's also in the Coronation, but he obviously isn't on board there. So yeah, good pick, I hope.
Hopefully we can both do that. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Racing Weekly, brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Many thanks to both Sam and Ken for joining me on the show this week, and good luck with your bets for next week. As always, if you've liked what you've heard or listened on this or any of our previous episodes, then please leave us a kind review on Apple Podcasts or in the comment section on YouTube. We'll be back next week where we'll be reviewing the whole lot again. Thank you very much.